This is Redlines, and as you can guess from its name, this is a show where we dive into very daring subjects and cross boundaries of political talk. I'm Yulia, and today I'm joined by Operator Starsky and Paul Shtelmakh, who are going to be helping me discuss today what is going on with the DOJ investigation and all the Russian propaganda and propagandists that are indicted. So, guys?
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Would you like to introduce yourselves a little better in case, some of our viewers might not know who you are, which is debatable, but it's always good to give them a little bit of an idea.
Okay, so let's start with Mr. Starsky.
Thank you so much. My name is Andrew, also known as Operator Starsky. I am a veteran of Ukrainian National Guard. I served since 2015 to 2024. And what I do is I'm running a YouTube channel dedicated to fighting propaganda on the West.
Okay, so my name is Paul Shtelmakh. I am a journalist, host of UTV, and also a researcher into propaganda and Russian propaganda in particular.
Paul? Okay. I thought your internet went off a little bit. Well, so that's a great panel we have here today. And I think it's very good to start with what are your thoughts on what's been happening with the DOJ investigation and where do you think it's going to go? And maybe I will ask Operator Starsky actually to summarize what's happening because I think he's the most qualified out of the three of us to do that.
Oh my God, I don't know where to start. This story reminds me of, some kind of action movie involving spies and intelligence agencies, but it's a reality, and it's a reality that we're facing, unfortunately, for many years in Ukraine. And in my personal opinion, it's one of the first cases when we can see such I would say such a publicity for this event, and it's great that government, not only government, but the justice, the forces of justice reacted, and we can see the results of the investigation. For those who don't know the situation, recently a Tennessee-based Tenet Media right-wing group consisting of 6 commentators and experts from the United States were exposed. And according to the results of the investigation, they were taking Russian money, and not just money, but big money. Almost $10 million were paid throughout, I believe, almost a year, for them producing Russian content. And basically they were hired by Russia Today, which is Kremlin's report, Kremlin's microphone spreading Russian propaganda wherever they can. And one interesting thing was that Margarita Simonyan herself several times mentioned that in different interviews mentioned that Russia Today is using bots. They use so-called alternative informational sources that they massively open in the Western informational space, basically bots. And she was talking about those games with CIA, like she wakes up in the morning and then she notices that hundreds of her bots were shut down by the CIA, but then she creates new ones, and this is how it goes. It's a very, very exciting story. I propose all our viewers to check out the indictment. It's absolutely tremendous investigation. You're gonna like it.
You know what that reminded me of? I don't know if you've watched this documentary, but there is this documentary on HBO called Agents of Chaos. And it's a and it's an investigation into the role of Russian bots in the American election. And it's really funny that Margarita Simonyan today says that she has bots and she recreates them, because in that particular documentary, she was saying that it's a crazy thing. And, Western journalists and investigators are just so obsessed with her and make up all of these crazy theories that are not true. Who would have bots? Why would anyone have bots? Why would Russia have bots? So I find it very interesting how, Russian narratives change every day. And I guess this is something we've discussed previously on another segment on this channel, how Russian propaganda influences Western societies and penetrates them so deep that they don't even notice it. So I think this DOJ investigation is really a very good sort of source of light into how this happens right in front of us, and we just kind of look at it and don't take it seriously. I found it very interesting how one of the hosts of this media was saying that he had no idea that he was spreading Russia favorable narratives and that he was being paid for it. The $400,000 he was paid in that year was just for him doing a tremendously amazing work in doing minimal research and spreading falsehoods. What do you think what do you think is going to happen to these sort of hosts and to other people that are very clearly spreading Russian propaganda on Twitter and on other social networks? Do you think it's a reason for them to start shaking in their boots?
Well, obviously they claimed to be victims of this whole conspiracy of Russian propaganda against them, and the main bodies perpetrators were Liam Donovan and Lauren Chan, the owners of Tenet Media and CEO, I believe, of that. Also, Tim Pool and Bennett Johnson's, these influencers with millions of followers on YouTube and other platforms, they've been retranslating narratives, basically, of Russia Today into American media space and being paid money for it, and now they claim they're victims. It is obviously a very good situation that the Department of Justice has started the investigation, because when the American justice system starts to investigate something, they don't stop halfway through. They go to the end. And I believe that the reputation of these influencers will be destroyed practically for most part of Americans. I'm not talking about this ultra-conservative and isolated part of American society that thinks that Russia is their friend and Putin is a friend. I believe there's some part of such audience, but still, we are entering a new age of propaganda where mild force and influencers are stronger than multi-million international broadcasting platforms like Russia Today, because Russia Today was banned in one day, and these influencers have been working for a year before being exposed.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish they were looking into people like Jackson Hinkle and Tucker Carlson, who are very clearly paid by Russia and have a lot more influence than Tenet Media ever did or ever will. But I hope it just sets a precedent. I think another very interesting thing that coincided with this DOJ investigation is the documentary about Russian soldiers. It came out at Biennale and is going to actually air tomorrow at the Toronto International Film Festival, a documentary that aims to paint Russian soldiers as these, sympathetic fathers and brothers with a sense of humor and their own agenda and understanding of this war, which it's nauseating to even say that. It's kind of like, Nazi Germany, we just need a different perspective on Nazi soldiers. They have kids and wives. And, while I was embedded with them, I did not see any gas chambers. So clearly they don't commit war crimes. Just disregard all the evidence we have, 100,000 plus evidence. But I guess that brings me back to sort of this idea of the West and how they treat propaganda and how they let propaganda happen, because in some cases they literally fund Russian propaganda, specifically in this case of this documentary, while the Americans are finally sort of, shaking up and investigating things. The Canadians pay 340,000 Canadian dollars it was to create a literal documentary with a woman who was the director of the documentary department at Russia Today, a channel that's banned across all Western world, including Canada. So how does that just go unnoticed and airs at big, huge international festivals?
It's a really good question, but looking at this specific case, actually, there were much more cases in the past when you take a look at all kinds of Russian movies that were created even before the full-scale Russian invasion, portraying Ukrainians either as, I don't know, nation of hookers or nation of mafia or whatever.
Human trafficking.
Human trafficking, of course. Brat 2, those movies about Russian gangsters, but good Russian gangsters, okay, fighting against bad Ukrainian gangsters, because Ukrainian gangsters are bad, but when Russians do crimes, it's like good. And it's a good case of Russia weaponizing their culture, because of course they want to justify their invasion of Ukraine. They want to introduce Russian invaders and Russian terrorists who murdered people in Bucha like human beings with deep souls and big internal world and spirituality and things like that. We will see many more cases like this, in my personal opinion. And I believe last year there was a message that Russians are preparing to not only involve more bloggers and opinion makers into their informational warfare, but also involve more culture. They basically have a whole group that creates cultural products like this, if we can call it this way, and spreads it around the Western society.
Well, yeah, cultural products like books, and Russia has been, I guess my favorite book is Battlefield Sevastopol. I mean, it's a joke, with the author who in a short span of about 5 years wrote, 340 something books, and you cannot find anything about that author online. He's totally not Russian AI. And this book predicted exactly what's going to happen in Crimea and all the, Ukrainian Nazis that were going to come out of nowhere. And my second favorite, I guess, Russian cultural masterpiece was in the beginning of the full-scale invasion. An Italian director with Russian money filmed a documentary about a Ukrainian refugee from Mariupol falling in love with a Russian soldier, and they were both gay, by the way. It was a lovely little it was a lovely little mesh of just anything you can imagine to humanize Russian soldiers. It's very sad that we continue seeing it. I guess like my hope with this DOJ investigation is that if we are looking at Tenet Media, which is arguably something that most of us probably did not really hear about before this, or like most average passerby hasn't, then we will start looking into Tucker Carlson and Jackson Hinkle and Kim.com, which, oh my God, and characters like that, because I feel like these are characters everyone has heard about. Like, even if you don't live on the internet, you have never been on Twitter, you know who Tucker Carlson is, you know who Jackson Hinkle is, you've at least seen like a meme or something, or if you're even in your like 60s, your kid has at some point showed you, his Russian bear hat picture or something like that. So I wonder why we start so small instead of actually tackling people who are very evidently paid by Russia to spread these narratives.
Probably because they're paid a lot of money. And Russia continues to invest millions and millions of dollars into that. I believe in 2023 there was a message that they influxed $1.5 billion into their propaganda globally, and that's part of their state budget. Imagine that kind of money. Bribing all kinds of grant owners, grant money, and creators, content creators, influencers. They started acting like asymmetrically. So they stopped buying media channels and creating correspondent points around the world. They started bribing content makers to spread their information narratives, and Tucker Carlson is their flagship. It's the Moskva flagship of the information space, because he is a media influencer, a blogger, and I believe a YouTuber after he left Fox News. And
Fox News, let's be correct, he was fired from Fox
yeah,
News. Which
after Fox News fired him, and we are entering a new stage of this information hybrid war, when it is the battle of influencers. Who's gonna take the most views, the most likes, and the most shares?
Well, that's very true, because so one of the things that I wanted to bring up and kind of, I guess, strategize on how to fight this, right, is, so for instance, this Russian documentary is garnering a lot of views. There are lots of people talking about it. Of course, there are all of the bots and all of the influencers involved. And then that same day, there was a video leaked of Russians executing a Ukrainian POW. And that was that was a counter argument to this woman saying that she has never seen any war crimes, so they must not exist. Yet if you look at this documentary, both outrage and people praising it because, oh, finally, not a mainstream view of, this Ukraine-Russia war. But that gains so many views and so many likes and so many retweets and so many shares. And then the video of the execution of a Ukrainian POW, because, we've seen it before. Who cares? Ukrainian POW executed again. Oh, boo-hoo, it's just war. That doesn't gain nearly as much traction. So how do we go about changing that? And I wonder, so I guess Operator Starsky would have a lot of experience in it. Do you run into a lot of roadblocks when because I'm sure you work with a lot of Western media and a lot of Western experts to sort of deconstruct their idea of Russian propaganda and steer them in the right way. Do you run into roadblocks of them not wanting to investigate something, or not wanting to say something, or not wanting to sort of highlight something because there is not enough evidence, because there is never enough evidence, or things like that? How difficult is it to kind of enlighten the Western world in what's happening and how Russia uses its methods?
You see, because today we are overloaded with information, and during the day we consume more information than people would consume in a year, like 100 years ago, I believe. Because of that, we can only accept or percept the information that brings us some kind of value, some kind of hype, shock, or whatever, and also publicity is very, very important as well. And it's not about people not willing to accept or percept some sort of information, like, for example, those videos with execution, because I admit people have seen a lot of them over the past 2 years, but at the same time, it's about people who deliver this information. It's about opinion makers who who contribute to bringing this information to the public. Why Russians are successful? Because, as my colleague said, they invest enormous money in their propaganda. We see plenty of those likes and shares for a very, very simple reason, is because in that investigation, in that indictment, the Konstantin Kalashnikov, the one of the Russian deputy chiefs of digital media department, right, of RT, that is the same department that created and introduced Russian software called Meliorator to create bot farms and create content for those bot farms. That's why there's no surprise that they have such a not reach but engagement with the audience if we're talking about the social media. They are much more effective in delivering this information because of the enormous money that they invest into promoting their videos, also promote their videos online on YouTube and other platforms. It wasn't $1.5 billion, by the way, it was $1.9 billion, according to the investigation last year. I believe that this year, this amount of money is much higher, maybe 3. We will see, maybe 3, maybe 4. But again, that is just official numbers, because that is just the number of money they invested into Sputnik, Russia Today, official Russian media broadcasting to the Western public. Unofficially, if like I have no idea how much they paid to opinion makers, politicians, talking heads on the TV or
Tucker
on YouTube.
Carlson.
Yeah, because I honestly don't believe that he went to Moscow for free. Like it's impossible, of course.
I mean, he's also not stupid enough to go to Moscow. Like, one of the most telltale signs, I guess, was him going around a grocery store and trying to tell people how good prices were. Like, he's not stupid, he's a very wealthy person. He's a person who's worked in TV for a long time. And as much as I do not agree with his crazy ideas and opinions, I don't think he actually adheres to them. I think he's a very good showmaker, and he just sort of knows what sells to his audience, and that's the audience he chose, and that's kind of what he delivers. But him walking around a Russian grocery store and saying how the American economy is in the trash because he just bought $50 worth of groceries in Russia, and it included all of these exotic fruit and stuff like that. He's not an idiot. He knows what a Russian salary is and how kind of expensive it is for an average Russian person as compared to your average American millionaire walking around a Russian grocery store and saying how affordable and accessible everything is. So I think it's the type of propagandish videos that he was filming that wouldn't even be like, as in, like, this doesn't make any sense to film for him, right? Because that's not his opinion, and he's not stupid enough to like not understand the inflation and money conversion and salary and kind of level of life. So that was very telling to me as to like, you were paid, buddy. You were very much paid to show a very specific picture of Russia. It's similar to that, I guess, stereotype of North Korea and the fake grocery stores that they have. That's sort of what it reminded me of.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I want to mention about this grocery store, this case, which was absolutely hilarious. My friend Sanction Divan, he's a Russian blogger who escaped from Russia, and he debunked this. Basically, he said that, look, what he bought, like pumpkin, like seriously, like pumpkin, who in Russia, being like sober, like eats pumpkins like in the middle of winter? Are you freaking crazy? Like those cereals, nobody buys those cereals because they suck, because after all the sanctions and after Russian invasion of Ukraine, a lot of producers of those cereals, like proper European cereals, they left Russia. And he debunks all that. He says, dudes, he paid for all this, which of course for Americans it's not like a big money because considering their salaries in the United States, but in Russia that is like literally half of a monthly salary, like average monthly salary. That is basically half of the salary of that cashier sitting there.
Yeah, and he didn't even buy any meat or anything that would actually make sense. Like, there wasn't butter, so you kind of, it was very random items that you couldn't even combine together in a meal. I believe there was cereal, but there wasn't milk, so you're not going to eat dry cereal. It just made no sense. I mean, it was very obviously a propaganda video, which is why it's so kind of, funny to see these American propagandists trying to feed these things to American audiences. But I guess the non-funny part is that people consume it. And people look at this grocery bag of things they wouldn't buy because they fully understand that this isn't edible and they can't do anything with it. And they're like, oh yeah, this is amazing. But then we have American and Canadian families that move to Russia because they think it's such a paradise and that they get slapped back to earth very quickly. So maybe Tucker Carlson is good for that.
Yeah, maybe they wanted to make a funny video, because I've seen a lot of YouTube videos and TV shows in America making fun of that grocery store trip, I believe, performance in the grocery store, because, they were making fun of him. And by making fun of him, both like conservative, progressive, democratic, Republican, they made it viral. They made it viral all over the United States, and both supporters and non-supporters of that, they watched the interview of Putin and Carlson, and they've seen that video. So maybe they were like trying the ground and grabbing all the attention they could. The question is, can Ukraine, I'm not talking about Europe, who is very slowly to gain momentum, can Ukraine attract such attention right now in the world using the same viral methods of grabbing attention on social media? Because it is required. It's damn,
You
we
know,
need it. We need attention.
it's actually a very good point, because I think what we are doing in Ukraine, like we love to talk about what the West is doing wrong, but I think like what we are doing wrong as Ukrainians is because we know that we're right in this situation and we're being wronged. Every video we make is very serious, and it's very and it's heartfelt, and it's talking about these horrendous events that happen here, because well, that's what's going on. And I think we really aren't capitalizing on rage bait content, because that's really what's going viral. For instance, I used to get a lot of comments from Americans or from like Ukrainians as to, I used to make these very sarcastic videos where I would start them with mocking a specific, like let's say Russian soldiers, right? I would start a video, which I did today actually for the first time in a while, where it was like, it's very important to show the perspective of Russian soldiers and the war in Ukraine. And what that does is an average Ukrainian who has never seen me before sees this and they're enraged. They're typing. They want to call me all sorts of slurs on the planet. But while they're typing, they hear the rest of it and they realize, oh wait, it's a pro-Ukrainian message. So then they want to share it. When your average American sees it at first, maybe if they're like brainwashed towards Russia, right, they'll be like, oh, this is the content I want to watch. And then they'll be like, wait a second, this girl is actually pro-Ukrainian. They're also typing. They're enraged. So all this does is it creates rage, but then the people that need to find this message share it, and the people that were gonna, that weren't gonna watch a pro-Ukrainian message are now watching it and writing rageful things and spreading it further to people who I would want to find this content. So I feel like maybe our issue with being, a step behind Russian propaganda, well, also outside of the fact that we do not have billions of dollars of budget money to spend on it, is that our people, because we are the honest, good people, and then like the light in this fight, right? I think we're being a little too honest and a little too good on how we approach this informational fight.
I can tell you this. The problem is, we know we are right, as you mentioned, and we know that, like, to us, to people in Ukraine, to people outside of Ukraine searching refuge or working with fundraisers for Ukrainian army, to people who understand what happens in Ukraine, everything is very clear. There's Russian invaders striking Ukraine with missiles, killing people, killing plenty of civilians, extremely atrocious army. But at some point we realize that okay, nobody's interested to hear about it anymore. Like, why? What are we doing wrong? The problem is the approach. You see, Russians are using disinformation. They are very, very dedicated. They have teams that are motivated and inspired to produce tons of disinformation and fakes for the Western audience, because they don't care about reputation. They don't care about their image. Like, it doesn't matter at all. It's Russia. Come on. At the same time, we cannot do that. We cannot fight propaganda with propaganda. We cannot fight disinformation with disinformation, because, again, things like disinformation and fakes, they are spread and shared much more actively, right, than some legit news, which is absolutely natural thing. And unfortunately, we cannot do like that. What we need to do is we have to use our journalists and our people who know how to conduct public relations, like like proper public relations, to attract the interest to Ukraine and keep the level of awareness. This is crucial. This is very, very important, because we don't have that consolidated army of communicators, of communication people that would create news, deliver those news to the media, and use whatever we can to gain publicity. If you want to produce fakes, it's really easy. That is why Russians are so effective at it. It's really easy. It requires you a team of guys with IQ a bit higher than a seashell and a box of beer, and you can create whatever you like. I remember 2019 when we were conducting PSYOPs against Russian hybrid forces on the other side, in the area of Zaitsevo, Svetlodarsk. We did the same. We shared all kinds of interesting messages. I'll tell you about them sometime. In the Russian social media, in the Russian communities that were monitoring the situation right there at that area. And of course, it was extremely fun, extremely cool. But one thing is, have a big imagination and big fantasy and create the most incredible things you can imagine. But keeping proper communication with the society is a different thing. Why Tucker Carlson failed in the grocery store is because he's American. In order to do proper PR, because he was brought there as a PR guy to make PR for the Russia, which failed tremendously because he doesn't know anything about this place. He didn't live there. He wasn't even consulted. He was literally brought to the subway, for example, by representatives of the Russian government, right? Russian administration. And they told him, can you tell American audience that, you see, we have clear subways, everything's cleared, we clear the garbage, we don't have drunk people here, we do maintenance, and it looks beautiful. And that's exactly what he said. He probably, he understands what may play for the American audience, right? But he doesn't live there. He doesn't understand the mentality. That's why, that grocery failed Subway, it was like a comedy stand-up show, basically. And one thing that every PR specialist will tell you is that if you want to make to conduct communications in a different country, better don't do it. Better find somebody in that country. Because if I want to create some kind of publicity for somebody, or I want to conduct communications in Georgia, right? I don't know the difference between Abkhaz people, Alans, etc., etc. I don't live there. I don't know how it works. Same with the United States. You have to live there at least for a while. And basically, this is why Tucker Carlson also failed.
Well, I think one of the things that they kind of didn't realize when they were doing that, right, is there are lots of Americans coming to Ukraine, and actually the Americans that come here are a lot more effective at influencing Americans than you and I and Paul are, right? Because Americans like to listen to Americans. The difference here, the key difference, is that the Americans that come here are your everyday people. Someone who has served in the army, someone who has a construction business, a retired guy from Florida, a woman who has a dog shelter in Arizona who now helps on the front lines and rescues dogs. These are real people with real kind of backgrounds that are relatable to you and me. They're not billionaires, right? Tucker Carlson is not relatable. He's not your average, American person who just sort of descended onto Russia and was like, look, bears and balalaika, I love it. It's kind of it's a millionaire TV personality who has a lavish lifestyle, walking around Russia, spending everyone in America, even the dumbest people that watch him, right, that believe everything he says, understand that this is what it is without, taking all of these layers off, is a millionaire walking around Russia and talking about affordability of things. It's like everything is affordable to Tucker Carlson. The man has a very, very, very large net worth, and he's not walking around, bars and pubs and meeting random people and grandmas and hearing stories. He's being what the KGB called an American. It was called something. It was specifically meant for American politicians and guests during the Iron Curtain times, and it was called like an American walk around or an American walkthrough, where they kind of set the scenes where they were like, beautiful subway, look at this wedding. So that's kind of like what Tucker got. But I also wanted to circle back on something that you said, where we don't have adequate representation. So for instance, your level of English is really good and you live in Germany, right? And you know sort of the internet very well. You also know propaganda very well. You would be a great candidature for the Ukrainian government to have as a representative at the German embassy, right? I would be a great representative at the American embassy, because we're both people on the internet with a lot of experience in fighting Russian propaganda, understanding geopolitics and things like that. But instead of that, we have very, very old school politicians conducting these relationships and talking to the masses in these countries. And I think that's also another area where we fail very drastically, because as much as we have a hybrid army, we also have a hybrid government. Part of it is very forward thinking and part of it is very much stuck in their old ways.
So could be. I never trained to be a politician. I trained to be a communication specialist. You are right. Of course, we need qualified politicians, reliable politicians. They are always, demanded, right? People always have demand for such people. But those guys that we have right now, they are professional politicians, and fortunately or unfortunately, they do their job and we do our job.
Yeah, but
we should not underestimate them.
Well, I wasn't saying that we should be the politicians. I was trying to say that it would be a very good initiative for sort of the Ukrainian government to take, I guess, internet personalities that are well liked, if we talk in these types of terms, that have also trust with their audience and with know how to speak to people because they've gained that trust, and put them forward as like representatives or attachés or kind of like the face of communications with like the broader public, because that way the work of the politicians would be accelerated, because I bet that you know more about German people and I know more about American people than your average politician that lives in the embassy and doesn't have time to walk outside, because it's really difficult, because that's your job. So it's sort of, I guess, like these kind of advising roles and public communications roles, I think would be great. And I'm not just saying, I'm not trying to get a job here. Don't, that's not what we're doing. I have plenty of fantastic American creators who could be great for this job. But as in, like, I always thought it'd be a great idea, and I thought that that's something that we could do that would be very different from Russia and would be actually very relatable to public. But another thing that I've noticed that is makes the West really susceptible to Russian propaganda and resistant in fighting it, I'm going to remind you about a story and something that I tried to do with the United States. And my American friend who was at the forefront of this investigation was rejected by the New York Times, saying he did not have enough evidence while he compiled. He's OCD. He compiled a very large amount of evidence. So there was this spy, Maria Butina, a very infamous Russian spy that was arrested and was, her cover was blown up and she was this redhead and there were movies made about her. She was a real life, covert affairs Russian spy in America that was supposed to insert herself into circles of high powered men and do her magic. And that she did. She was sponsored by American Butane Company, which was a company owned by Russian oligarchs that was also exposed, and that company was closed, and, sad. So recently, we have found a company that had purchased a startup company that works with the American Department of Defense and has all access to everything that the American Department of Defense is working on. And that company has been recently purchased from 3 professors at the MIT who founded it. And it's located in Texas in the same suite as the American Butane Company was, in the same house as the American Butane Company was located. And when you look up this address, it's not an office building. It is literally a two-story house. So it's someone's private property. And when you look deeper into this company, one of the board members is one of the handlers of that Russian spy. And I'm giving you like a very, very low down summary of the events, but a friend of mine who was looking into this entire investigation compiled like, maybe I can't even estimate how many pages of different evidence and of, paid research that he's invested into looking into these people and into how they were able to purchase it and stuff like that, and presented it to the New York Times to be like, hello, there are the handlers of Maria Butina who bought a company from the MIT that works with the American Department of Defense. These are Russian oligarchs. We are sanctioning Russia. Like, Russia is our adversary. What is going on here? And the New York Times did not want to investigate or publish it because there was not enough evidence.
Reminds me of 8VC, the company that invested in Twitter when Elon Musk was borrowing money for acquiring Twitter. This was one of his investors, and two sons of Russian oligarchs work there. They're employed there, while their fathers are officially sanctioned by the United States, by the European Union. They work there, and they work with the contractors for the Department of Defense. So it is the same. Of course, I respect American law enforcement, and I respect their secret services. I know that they do their job as well. And it's not necessarily they, as soon as something like that is discovered, they rush and they just, cut all the ties, because there are different things and different operations conducted by those guys. They also do their things. So I really, really hope that we will not see such cases, Tenet in the future. But I really, really hope that we will see a lot of them being exposed in the nearest future, because this one is extremely ridiculous. One thing that you mentioned was how is it possible that they didn't know that they were working for Russians, for example? Because according to the indictment in 2001, they were literally working directly with the RT. It's before the full-scale Russian invasion. They were directly working with the RT, and I'm talking about the founder of this Tenet Media. He published something like 200 videos and different commentaries from RT and for RT. And Tenet, throughout a year, they published, besides all the content that they produced for the Russians, they also published more than 800 videos and other types of content delivered by Russians, delivered directly by RT. So they literally took that from a Russian editor and pushed it into the American informational space,
it also
which makes
probably still had the watermark that said RT on it. So.
I have no doubt. But one thing, one way or another, especially in these very situations, Russians will indeed attempt to do whatever they can in order to conceal the fact that they're Russians for several reasons. Reason number one is because, of course, it's really kind of sketchy, even for... Oh my God! Even for the rightest conservatives you can imagine in the United States that fight for isolationism and yada yada, but even to them admitting that they directly cooperate with Russians, it's kind of meh. It's kind of sketchy. Yeah, they don't do that. And another thing is because besides buying opinion makers, besides buying talking heads on the West, Russians also do things like blackmail. So when this person either realizes something or decides to quit working with them decides to cut the cooperation with whoever they are, they can always say, "Здравствуй, товарищ, we have a surprise for you." So if you don't want other people to realize who you were working for, you have to do this and that, and you will be, awarded. They are very cunning, and we are talking about FSB/KGB, which are known for being some of the most atrocious, but at the same time professional, unfortunately, secret service of the world. So that's the situation.
So I guess.
Yeah, but a second, please. One remark: we're talking about masses. What I am seeing right now, as a person from some kind of academic research into propaganda, we have a victory, and we are winning the information war in the elites and the educational spheres of Europe, of America. We have professors like Timothy Snyder, even, and other professors, having Ukrainian journalists and researchers. They are developing and they are having a firm stance in the elites and the higher education system. What we still have to work with is those masses. And Russians don't have that influence in the elites. They have influence in the masses. On the contrary, we have elites and still don't tackle the masses.
Yeah, I guess a good conclusion to this discussion would be what are the lessons we can learn from this DOJ investigation, and what kind of direction does that give us for the future, and how can we apply what the West just did and do it 100 times better? I guess what are your thoughts on this?
My personal opinion is that governments should protect their citizens against disinformation, which is crucial. Currently, there's a lot of volunteers all over the world fighting against Russian disinformation without funding, without whatever we have cannot be even compared to billions of Russian dollars invested into their misinformation. So governments should create mechanisms to protect their citizens, which would also involve destroying channels of delivering disinformation to their society. YouTube blocked the Tenet media. YouTube also blocked the channels of the commentators, and it's effective. Russia Today was also blocked. It was dropped from from the television by different providers around the world. Mm-hmm. It's also effective because people who watch television, they rarely go to internet, and vice versa. All kinds of measures must be introduced and implemented to fight Russian disinformation. And of course, one thing that I want to repeat one more time is that we, as people who can speak and who can be heard by people, we must do all we can to fight this misinformation for people and to help them combat it, because we must be more dedicated than our enemies. And that is the only way to win. If we are more dedicated and more motivated to fight this informational warfare and win. That is just what I wanted to say.
For sure. I agree with that sentiment. I think that we should be putting all of our efforts, Russia, I guess here's the thing. We have a lot of people and a lot of citizens that are very conscious, that are on the internet, that are educated, that know sort of what's happening, not only from, I've seen, a building crash in front of me, but Ukraine is a very educated nation in general. And I think we have a lot of well-spoken, young, active individuals. And I think that that's one leg up that we have on Russia, because Russia has to train bots, and they have a lot of money to pay people or train bots, people that don't necessarily have a soul in this. We have a lot of people that are willing to create this content for free. So I guess a very good advice here would be, if you're Ukrainian or if you're someone in the West and you have been, following Ukraine for a very long time and you want to start creating content explaining what's happening here, just do it. don't have the mental block of like thinking whether you're good for camera or, you're scared on camera. I used to never want to be on camera, and here I am. So just, I think that one of the things that we have that they don't is we have passionate people who actually believe in what they're saying. Now just say it for the masses. Do you have anything to add, Paul?
That's basically what I mean when I say work with the masses. We have to encourage our content creators and people, volunteers, to create viral content and softly promote pro-Ukrainian, pro-American, pro-peaceful narrative, because Russian narrative is destructive. They promote war. They promote aggression. What pro-Ukrainian narrative promotes is peace and harmony, maybe rebuilding something, not destroying something. That's my opinion, I believe sincerely that we will eventually end up winning in this information warfare, because the truth will always be stronger than lies, no matter how much money the lies has.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you too so much for joining me here today to talk about the effects of Russian propaganda, especially the invisible ones, and some, visible combating that we're finally doing in the West. I cannot believe it. It's only been 3 years or so, but better late than never. So thank you very, very much for joining me. And if you would like to follow Operator Starsky and have more of his commentary, because he is available on YouTube, please do so. I do believe that most of the people who are going to be watching it have at least heard about you a couple of million times. But if they haven't, then the link to Operator Starsky's channel is going to be right in the bio to this video. And you can see Paul on UATV English or on The Gaze with his segments almost every day, because he is very overworked and he is very motivated to help Ukraine do better.
Exactly. Thank you. I can say the same for you and for Mr. Starsky, who will also work with Gaze and UATV in future, and we are very happy with that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you here again.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, both of you.
You too.
You as well. So we have crossed some political talk red lines today, and we're going to cross many, many more in the future, that I can promise you. I hope we were also able to give you some food for thought and some creative ways of looking at certain subjects that you might have not seen from the same perspective before. And if we were able to accomplish that for you, then please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to give this video a like, a comment, and maybe share it with a friend. And we always welcome constructive criticism. And I will see you next time with an amazing panel of amazing speakers who are going to be very happy to dive into some more daring subjects. Till next time.